The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus proposed another parable to the crowd, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat and then went off. When the crop grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, 'Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from?' He answered, 'An enemy has done this.' His slaves said to him, 'Do you want us to go and pull them up?' He replied, 'No. If you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. Then at harvest time, I will say to the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn.' He proposed another parable to them. 'The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a person took and sowed in a field. It is the smallest of all the seeds. Yet when full grown, it is the largest of plants. It becomes a large bush, and the birds of the sky come and dwell in its branches.' He spoke to them another parable. 'The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed with 3 measures of wheat flour until the whole batch was leavened.' All these things Jesus spoke to the crowds in parables. He spoke to them only in parables, to fulfill what had been said through the prophet, 'I will open my mouth in parables. I will announce what has lain hidden from the foundation of the world.' Then, dismissing the crowds, he went into the house. His disciples approached him and said, 'Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field.' He said in reply, 'He who sows good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed, the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. Just as weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all who cause others to sin and all evildoers. They will throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears ought to hear.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Who won the Super Bowl 4 years ago? Oh, you don't really have to answer, but since you did know. These are just questions for you to think about. Who was the best female actress for the Oscar 3 years ago? Who was it that ran against George H.W. Bush when he ran for president the first time. Now you think I'm going to give you all the answers, and no, because I don't remember either. And that's the whole point. Now, I did look them up, so I know the answers, but I don't want to steal that from you so that you can do that, but not right now, folks. No Googling now. Isn't it amazing how much hoopla went into each of those events? Trophies passed around, people screaming, yelling, clapping their hands, doing all of those things because these events were very forthright in our lives. We saw them on television, we read about them in the newspapers, and poof, they're pretty much gone. I'm not going to guarantee that nobody could answer all three of the questions I asked, but the chances are pretty slim that that's going to come up. Why? Because I asked those questions of myself and I could not answer them. So I did Google them. But the key here, at least for me, is that all that hoopla, all that being first, all that material that we're going to keep right here in the forefront of our minds is pretty much gone. And there's a lesson in that. And the lesson is basically found in today's gospel, where Jesus tells us that a mustard seed is the smallest seed in the world. But when you plant it and it grows, it turns into an enormous tree, a tree that is full of good things. What does that say to us? Think about a moment in your life when somebody said or did something that made just an enormous impression in your life, and you still remember that moment. When my cousin, Father Dennis Gainey, he was an Augustinian priest, and as one person once pointed out, the famous Father Gainey, he came to my father's wake from his residence in Chicago. We waked my dad and my mother at our home. It's the old Irish tradition. Father Dennis, after having made that journey, wrote an article for America. And in that article, he said something like this: I arrived after 9 o'clock, the traditional time for funeral parlors to be closed. But I knew that I could still go to the wake because it was in my cousin's home. He and Daddy were cousins. And sure enough, he wrote, when I got to the house at 68 Jacob Street, there were lights on, and I went in, and when I opened the door and walked in to the house, there was Dennis, my dad, presiding over the living room in death, as he had often presided there in life. I can remember that 47 years later, because it was a small thing that grew into the legend that he created. That's what Jesus says to us about our Christian lives. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed that a person took and sowed in a field. It is the smallest of all the seeds. Yet when full grown, it is the largest of plants. It becomes a large bush, and the birds of the sky come and dwell in its branches. Jesus is saying to us, the kingdom of heaven is oftentimes made up of small events, small things that we do for one another because we are Christians and human beings. You probably do remember a time when somebody said just the right thing at the right time, and it has made an enormous difference in your life. So Jesus is saying to us, it isn't the hoopla, it isn't the Super Bowl trophy, it isn't the Oscar, it isn't the presidency of the United States that necessarily make up the kingdom or that are important for our lives. What is important for the kingdom is doing the little things well. Planting the seed of kindness. Maybe you help out somebody who is having a little difficulty in their home. They can't move from spot to spot. You go over and help them move. It's a little thing. Nobody will recognize it except the person who was helped. Maybe you go down and help in a building a house. Here, some of the folks will be doing next Saturday. It's a small thing. It probably is going to involve a hammer. It's going to involve a paintbrush. It's going to involve something that's really totally insignificant. The day will go by. But you have planted the seed of a home for somebody else, and they will never forget it. Maybe you don't even know at times that something you said changed the path of somebody's life. A simple, how are you? When you're feeling badly, makes that person perhaps turn around. It is the simple things well done that are so important in all our lives, and particularly because we are followers of Jesus Christ. Keep the big things big and the little things little, we oftentimes say. And Jesus would say to us, be sure that you are like the mustard seed. Perhaps it is small, what you do or what you say or the kindnesses you give to others. But it can grow into a wonderful thing, the kingdom of God. And it is, after all, Jesus' way.